What is up, YouTube? It's Long Island's Rock and Roll Cockroach. Today we're talking about a really amazing electronic artist called Mr.Kitty. The new record is called EPHEMERAL, and there is nothing fleeting about it. EPHEMERAL is 30 tracks long. It really takes a certain level of stamina and commitment to sit down and listen to this new album. It's also really, really dark. There's a lot of dark themes. Largely it's about the impacts of suicide. But for anyone who's already a fan of Mr.Kitty, this is going to be a treasure trove of new tracks for you to take in. So those who already know a little bit about synthwave and future pop and dark indie pop will probably already know a little bit of what Mr.Kitty is all about. But EPHEMERAL finds him playing a lot more with dance and pop tones, things that are a little bit more mainstream. However, it's still Mr.Kitty dark, which is what we're all really used to by now. And I think even those who don't listen to dark electronic music will immediately gravitate towards EPHEMERAL just because it is so distinctly pop. Mr.Kitty tends to label his music as being self-destructive synth pop or suicide synth. However, I think there's a lot more going on this record. I think that EPHEMERAL, as a total record, really found Mr.Kitty forging his own path rather than taking so much inspiration from his predecessors. The project of Mr.Kitty really began as like heavy Crystal Castles worship, but through all of 6 of his studio records, including an EP that was released, I think you find Mr.Kitty evolving distinctly over all these records, but EPHEMERAL is the one record that you find it extremely distinct. I find now that I'll listen to something and be like, oh, this sounds similar to Mr.Kitty, rather than, oh, Mr.Kitty sounds like X, Y, and Z other artist. I think that on EPHEMERAL, as a whole record, you find Mr.Kitty really honing in on his songwriting skills, so there's more of a distinct beginning, middle, and end to every song. I think at this point in Mr.Kitty's career, you're going to see that his songwriting is extremely futuristic, it's very formulaic, but it's distinctly Mr.Kitty. It also incorporates a lot of touches of synthwave, trance as well. Now, lyrically, I think EPHEMERAL is a pretty tough listen. The lead single, Empty Phases, is probably the most obvious evidence of this, which it was written about a friend who killed himself. The whole record actually was dedicated to this friend who died, and the suicide hotline is in the liner notes of the record. There's this really great juxtaposition between the pop sound and the devastatingly dark lyrics that makes for a really interesting listen. Some of my favorite tracks from EPHEMERAL have to be 0% Angel, Trauma, From Liquid, and those are just a few. But overall, I find myself getting really, really lost in this album just due to the sheer size of it. I think that anyone who listens to Mr.Kitty or anyone who listens to EPHEMERAL is going to find that he's really broken down a lot of barriers regarding pop. I think EPHEMERAL is a really impressive record, and to watch Mr.Kitty, in a way, change the landscape of pop music in the grand scheme of things is extremely exciting. So no, this album is not brief, but in the big picture of things, life is. And at least we have music to make it brighter. EPHEMERAL was released today, March 8th, on Negative Gain Records. You can listen to it on Bandcamp now, and additionally, it'll be on all streaming platforms on May 24th. That's it! That's all I got. If you liked what you saw, please hit the subscribe button. You can follow Dental Records on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Tumblr, all of that stuff. We are also on Patreon. So if you give a shit about local music and you care about writing that is thoughtful, how about you support us? The lowest tier is only $2 a month. Thank you so much for watching. Talk soon.